Hello and welcome to Nat Chat. I'm Mirella Rich. Today our guest is Patrick Sibley, who's done his Masters in Bioethics, and we'll be talking about relationships and a lot more. Welcome to the program. Thanks for coming back again.
Thank you.
It's good to have you, Patrick. Now, can you tell us a little bit about relationships, like say either young teenagers looking for a partner or adults looking for the correct partner? What are some of the studies you've found in that area to make the correct decisions?
Okay, so building on what Patrick Langrel had to say about sort of the proper order of finding a lifelong relationship that's not going to fall to pieces, sort of getting to know, trusting, relying, and then committing, and then intimacy, sort of working in that right order. I think someone that put some good words on it recently that I heard speak was an American by the name of Jason Evett, and a married guy. I think he's about 30 years old, and he had a list of. He was saying, "You teenagers know what you're not. You know what you're supposed to not do. Sort of maybe from the advice of your parents, you think, oh no, I'm not. I know I'm not supposed to do that, and I know I can't do this, and I know I shouldn't do that." We're saying, well, what should you do? So if I've actually got it. I took a couple of notes at his talk.
Yeah.
Mirella. I think that was probably best if I go straight to what he had to say. And what he did say was he encouraged the teenagers to, he asked a question of them actually. He said, if I can't say no to sex, when I get to someone that I love, what is my yes going to mean? What is my yes to sex going to mean if I can't say no to sex anyway? It doesn't carry the power that it's meant to carry. That I give my whole self. There's nothing more I can give to you. Yeah. And he says, if you can't say no, what does that mean? And I thought, well, that's a pretty good question. He encouraged young people to enjoy being single. Stop looking on the other. Stop sort of looking over the fence and saying, oh, I wish I had this and I wish I had that. And it's just, any psychologist I think would say the same thing. It's sort of like, don't ruin your life by thinking everything, you need to have more of this and more of that, or it needs to be different all the time. Just really enjoy that time of being free and single. And so what was your question again, Mirella?
Happy where you are. Oh yeah, so what sort of advice that you were saying about him that he gave for teenagers or even just people starting out looking for a relationship that's actually going to last?
Okay, Jason Evett said this, but I first heard it from a man by the name of Anthony Messer, and he said, he used the language of becoming the person, and I typed this down for myself, becoming the person that you want someone to be attracted to. That's where the focus should be, not about how am I going to get this one and that one, but, and the language he used, Anthony Messer, was, are you the person that the person you are looking for is looking for? Are they looking for you? And he told this funny story about this girl. She meets this guy and she thinks he's the best thing ever. He's got his act together, he's handsome, he's got a job, he's organised, he's got values that he's going to love whoever he's with, he's going to love her. And the mother turns to her daughter and she says, honey, that kind of guy is not looking for a girl like you. And she's very disappointed, of course, but it was the mother's way of saying, you got work to do, honey. Like, he's not looking for you. You've got to start sort of putting things in order. Like, get ready. Like, make yourself into a woman that he's going to be attracted to. So that's the advice that's Anthony Messer's sort of advice for the words he put on what Jason Evett was saying. He's telling guys to stay well away from porn because it just fosters their tendency to go towards fantasy and imagine just unreal relationships, which is the quickest way to end any even possibilities. It's sort of like the reverse of a chick magnet, so to speak. It's like, this guy's totally, it's a way to totally ruin your capacity for any kind of healthy relationship. And he said, he was encouraging, he was talking about the dynamic of a relationship where a girl might not know what's going on. And he was saying the guy needs to like make commitments. and he was saying to the girls, like, define the relationship. Make sure you know what's going on. This is not, are we meeting at parties, or are we friends? Are we going out? Like, it shouldn't be any of that. What's happening here? Business. It should be like, yeah, we're going out for the next 3 months at least. We're getting to know each other, and I'm meeting his family. It needs to be defined. That was his advice. So there's not this what's happening, sort of, particularly from the girl's point of view.
Yeah.
And Jason Evett also talked about things need to be done face to face. Like, this whole sort of internet relationship thing is a total disaster waiting to happen.
Yeah.
Like, you need to be in their space, asking them and telling them things face to face. Friends of mine tell a beautiful story. He was 16 and she was 16, and he sat down, and it took him 2.5 hours to get out the words that "I love you." And she was very patient, obviously, Sujin and Priya. And Priya went home, told her dad that this guy sort of fancied her, and he says, "Too early. It's a bit too early, honey. You're only 16." But it was done face to face.
Yeah.
He sat down. Gave her the time, and this was in the days of internet and Facebook. So this was only 10 years ago. So he made the effort to sit down face to face, and they ended up married. It took 8 years, but and I asked him recently. I said, how's the relationship now? And he said, we're still on our honeymoon.
Oh, wow.
And they've been married for 8 years. And I think that sounded like a pretty good relationship to me. The funny thing was, being Indians, the whole family went on their honeymoon.
All together?
Yeah.
Okay.
But he said the best part of it is we're still on our honeymoon, 8 years into our marriage.
Amazing.
So face to face was Jason Evett's advice. Define the relationship. And he said guys need to make commitments and initiate. So the guy has a role to be bold. Don't expect the girl to like make herself so vulnerable. He was encouraging guys to step out, like be bold, risk looking like an idiot.
All right, we'll have to go to a break, but we'll continue on that. You're watching Nat Chat. Stay with us. We'll be back with more very shortly. Hello and welcome back to Nat Chat. I'm Mirella Rich. If you've just joined us, we're here with Patrick Sibley, and he's done his Masters in Bioethics, and we're talking about relationships. Welcome back to the program.
Thanks, Mirella.
Patrick. So tell us a little bit about, you studied a little bit about Robert Barron or something?
I was listening to a talk the other day by Robert Barron.
Talking about relationships, because before we went to break, you're talking about the men in relationships aren't able to commit, and then you just got up to the men, so you didn't get up to the women. So what was the women's part?
That was Jason Evett actually. Yeah. Jason Evett was talking about a guy's greatest fear, which is to commit, and he was encouraging these people at this talk, encouraging the young guys, school age and early university age, to like initiate, like be brave, like stick your neck out, ask a girl out for goodness sake. He was really emphasising how the older generation would say. He told a story about a lady who got asked out 10 times in a month by guys at old-fashioned dances. They would say, do you want to go to the dance? And he was just pointing out what a disastrous state our culture's in, where guys don't even ask girls out anymore. They don't initiate anything. They're just hoping to hook up. So it's just like no commitment, no contact, no face-to-face, no getting to know each other, just cheap thrills with no future. And he was saying, if that's what you invest in, that's what you're going to get. And he was saying a woman's greatest fear is that she's not worth committing to. So those two going hand in hand. And
which is interesting, because a lot of the time when marriages fall apart, the guy that didn't want to commit in the first place and the woman that didn't feel that she was worthy of committing, maybe she's ended it for whatever reason, and then the guy falls apart when it does end, although he didn't want to be committed in the first place.
Yeah.
So it's interesting how the dynamics change after years of marriage.
Yeah, that makes sense. You remind me of, where were we there? Just relationships.
Relationships when, say, the woman didn't want to commit,
Yeah.
like you said before, and then the man didn't. No, the man didn't want to
Oh,
commit,
yeah.
and the woman was afraid she
Yeah.
wasn't good enough to be committed too.
Yeah.
And then after years of marriage, when they break up, the man falls apart. He didn't
Yeah.
want to commit in the first place.
Yeah, well, Jason Everett, I'll bring up another point there. He encouraged the teenagers to define the relationship, keep the relationships sort of not to tell any lies in the relationship, sort of with their bodies. Don't go saying, I give you my entire self with your body when you've really got no context of doing that. Don't let anyone tell you lies with their body.
Yeah.
Them to give them their whole self, which is a forever language. It's saying to engage in that sexual act is to say, I give you myself forever. That's what that act means. It has a meaning. But to say that out of any other context than a lifelong commitment is a lie. And it reaps nasty consequences. And I'll just get back to what Anthony Messer had to say. Can you remind me in a sec about people thinking they've married the wrong person? I thought this was
Oh, that's right.
yeah, it was very interesting what he had to say. The other thing that was a little bit sensitive, which is what Jason Everett had to say, was he encouraged couples, if they want lifelong love, to reject contraception. And the reason he gave his reasons, and I understand the reasons too that he didn't talk about to this younger audience, but he was saying if you engage, it's like what we talked about in the last interview, contraception can say to the other person, I love you, I love you, just except there's just a little bit of you that I don't want, and that's your capacity to bring forth life. I don't want your fertility. It's just a little bit much for me. And he's saying, John Paul II actually spoke about this, that's a way that can be received as a really deep felt rejection. There's, no matter what's happening on the surface, deep down it's like, hang on, he really doesn't love me, or she really doesn't love me, because there's the whole element of we might create some new human being, the whole miracle thing, the greatest part of the excitement in sort of the sexual relationship, we could create a new human being. Jason Everett was arguing that when that aspect is not there, that something is very wrong, and it's very destructive, and that it breaks down the trust, and people start having the fear that they're being used. And contraception also messes with the whole chemistry of the woman's mind, and her body thinks it's pregnant when she's on contraception. And Dr. Nick Tontafilippini, the late Dr. Nick, told me that his argument was that if she appears to be pregnant, she appears to be available to the man, she can't get pregnant because she's on contraception, but he said the dynamic of her body thinking it's pregnant is that her interest in the sexual act is less. So she's more available, less interested, sort of messing with the whole chemistry of the guy's mind.
Interesting.
And causing problems that way. But back to the relationships, and Anthony Messer, he's actually a priest. He's a Coptic priest who's married, being a Coptic priest, and who's counselled thousands of couples. And he said, don't think that the perfect woman, you married the wrong woman. He said it's such a deceptive thought. He said, be happy with the 80%, the 85%. You're not going to marry a perfect woman. It's a deception. And then she might get a little bit tired of you, and she stops laughing at your jokes, and she might not like the food you cook, or he doesn't like. And then you go to work, and he was painting this picture, and you go to the drinks fountain, and then Barbara from the other end of the office comes over to the drinks fountain, and everyone else has gone home, and she laughs at your jokes, and you're not used to that. And then
good old Babs.
Yeah, what was that?
Good old Babs.
Yeah, and she says something like, and then you agree with her. It's like, whoa, you haven't been used to that. You actually agree with this woman on something. It's like, oh. And he says, then you start telling yourself, it's like, oh, I married the wrong woman. I meant to marry this girl. And he said, it's just so stupid because, he says, I don't know if this is true. I said this to a woman recently. She goes, I don't agree with that. He said, you can have chemistry with anybody. He says, you give me a whole room full of women, and I'm guarantee you I could find chemistry with every one of those women. And I said this to a female friend recently. She just, no, I don't think so. But he was saying, especially from the guy's point of view maybe, don't get caught up in the chemistry thing. Forget it. It's about commitment, decision, count your blessings. It's not about the cup being half full or half empty. So it's 3/4 full, for goodness sake. She's amazing. She's committed to you. She loves you. She's prepared to put up with your bad habits. Why would you think that there's some kind of chemistry missing?
We'll have to go to a break now, but we'll continue on that. You're watching Nat Chat. Stay with us. We'll be back with more very shortly. Hello and welcome back to Nat Chat. I'm Mirella Rich. If you've just joined us, we're here with Patrick Sibley, who's done his Masters in Bioethics, and we're discussing relationships and how to make them work. Welcome back to the program.
Thanks, Mirella.
So before the break, you were talking about some things about relationships. Can you continue with that?
Where were we? Father Anthony Messer, who counselled a lot of couples, was
That's right, yes.
delivering this talk to a bunch of young people wanting to find someone, and a few couples.
Chemistry, that was what we were talking about.
Yeah, and he was just he came across, I was watching the interview online, and he was coming across really frustrated because he's been dealing with this for so many years, and he was just trying to drill it into people to get over the chemistry thing, to not be deceived into wasting what is really a beautiful gift from God in the other person, thinking, I married the wrong person, or there's someone perfect out there, or all I need to find chemistry. Because it kind of plays into that whole culture of, I'll love you and until love lasts kind of thing. Sort of the pretend wedding vows, sort of, I love you, but when our marriage fails, sort of like the prenuptial agreement. I love you, but when our marriage fails, I'll get this and you'll get that. It's sort of like we need to have that faith in that love is
infinite. Yeah,
it's lifelong love. And not sort of marriage, when I die, for example, me and my wife are no longer married. We might say that, I think it was the words of Henri Nouwen, the French writer. He wrote a letter to his father. When his mother died, he wrote a letter to his father, which became a book called A Letter of Consolation. And Henri Nouwen writes about how true love really doesn't see limits in this life. It talks about, it has a forever mentality. And I notice that women are particularly strong with this concept. It's like, they don't care about sort of saying, oh, look, when one of us dies, we're not married anymore. They're not talking about that. They're talking about what love is. It has an eternal vision that we'll always love each other, that this will last forever, that it's a very beautiful thing that has an eternity about it. Yeah. And sorry, I got a bit distracted there, but
anyway, you're saying like not just to go for the chemistry, and when the chemistry filters out, don't look for Barbara for the men not to look for Barbara, Barbara in the drinking fountain.
Yeah, just don't be
jokes.
Yeah, don't be robbed.
Yeah.
Just like, don't be robbed of what you've got, because it's all deception and it'll bring you down, and the chemistry with that woman's going to wear out too. So don't kid yourself.
Yeah.
So I found that pretty helpful.
Yeah.
To think, all right, it's about commitment, decision. And Jason Evett, when he was talking to those young folk a couple of weeks back, he was saying, commit, give, donate, like give. He was telling to the young guys there, like, your mentality needs to be commit, initiate, and give. Like, what can I give this woman?
And why do you think he's saying this to them, and they're not actually asking women out, they're hooking up, as you said before? Why is that happening, do you think, now? Why aren't the guys doing it the old-fashioned way and asking for dates?
I guess I can only speak for myself when I feel like I should have taken initiative. Afraid of rejection, maybe. Fear. It's all about fear.
Then why was there less fear before?
Good question. I suppose it's a whole breakdown in our culture, where if you say anything goes, and there's no real boundaries, or there's no oughts, or what you ought to do, or what's good, or grandfather might sit down with their grandson and say, you know, it's good to do this, or grandmother might say, you should do this, or it might be good to do that. I think in a culture where you say, oh, anything goes, then why should a guy take any initiative? Why should he make any effort? Why should he think about giving anything to anybody? If it's all about me, if it's all about you, I remember some writer or speaker saying, if you go out looking to find yourself in the world, you're going to find yourself and be very disappointed. If that's all you're looking for, if all you're looking for is self, that's all you're going to find. And when you find yourself, you're going to be completely disappointed and totally disillusioned. And your life's not going to mean anything. And I thought, well, there's a summation of our culture today.
And the other thing is, the beauty is you actually find yourself in the other person. When you love another person, you find out who you really are.
Yeah, well, I'd have to, I understand that. Even just going with what the Jew Jesus, the prophet, priest, king, whatever you want to call him, had to say. It's in giving that you, in those Jewish scriptures, it's in giving that you receive. So sort of a reality check on where we find fulfillment, I suppose. And I imagine that the great masters of spirituality would agree. The great masters of spirituality in the other religious traditions. So
how do you think it can change? Where guys can be a bit more courageous in asking girls out, and girls can be a bit more whatever they need to be? Yeah,
I don't know. I suppose guys do need to be encouraged to take risks. Initiate. Risk being rejected. It's not the end of the world.
And start again. If you miss out, you can start again. You can ask someone else out. If that one, then it wasn't meant to be. I guess if you ask a girl out and she didn't want to come, then that wasn't the one that was for you.
Yeah.
It's someone else better.
I suppose it takes all the fantasy and imagination out of it if you just initiate and be upfront, face to face. But I think young people need to have that vision. Ask yourself, I would say to young people, what do you want? Do you want lifelong love? There's ways to get there, and it doesn't involve casual sex. It absolutely, under no circumstances, involves casual sex. If you try before you buy, if you have that mentality, particularly for girls, when the luster kind of wears off the paint job and the car doesn't drive like it used to, he's going to trade you in for another model. He's going to try another model, a new model. He doesn't want the old model. So if girls have let themselves be taken into that model of understanding relationships, try before you buy, get ready to be traded in. And for guys, the reality is they're not trying anything. All they're trying is what pleasure they can get out of an experience. Go to a nightclub, that's what you see. But you're not trying the way they're going to treat with respect. Can they handle finances? Can they handle, what are they like under pressure? You're trying nothing. You're actually giving yourself wholesale. It's actually a buying. You've signed a blank check. So and you've got nothing for it. There's a sale, but no.
All right. Well, sorry, we have to end the program now, but you'll have to come again another time.
All right.
Thanks so much for coming on the program, Patrick.
All right. Thanks, Mirella, very much.
You've been watching Nat Chat. I'm Mirella Rich, and our guest was Patrick Sibley. Hope you enjoyed the program. See you again soon.